Today's lesson is The Great Stone Face. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Helen.
And we're going to continue with our literature unit for the month of January. Last time we began to talk about our featured story, The Great Stone Face. Remember, this is a Nathaniel Hawthorne story, which was published way back in 1850. So what has happened so far, Helen?
Well, the story is about a rock formation that looks like the face of a noble man. So this face has a very noble nose, and as legend has it, a person who resembles that stone face will be known as a great American hero. So now everybody is trying their luck and seeing if they will resemble that face, according to Ernest, so that they can become the next American hero.
So we'll continue to talk about the story in today's lesson. So let's find out what happens in the plot next. Let's listen to the first part of today's lesson right now.
The first to return was a merchant who had left the valley long ago to seek his fortune. Everyone admired his wealth, and some claimed his face resembled that of the mountain. However, Ernest saw that the kindness of the stone face wasn't there.
大家好，第一部分我们可以看到单字 merchant， 这个字是名词，指的是商人或是批发商。例如 Merchants set up shops in the market to sell everything from food to books. 商人在市场里开店，从食品到书什么都卖。或者 A merchant offered Peter 10 gold coins for the strange necklace. 一名商人要给 Peter 10枚金币买那条奇怪的项链。
So as we know, people were coming one by one to the valley to see if they resembled the great stone face. Now, the first to return to the valley was a merchant who had left the valley long ago to seek his fortune. Now, a merchant is somebody who does business by buying and selling goods. We don't really use the word merchant anymore. We usually say business person. But in the past, merchants were those people who sailed from one continent to another. For instance, Marco Polo sailed from Italy to China because he was trying to look for goods to bring back to Europe to sell. So he really paved the way for many European merchants who were looking for goods to sell, Asian goods to sell.
Exactly. And if you are a merchant, or at least if you are a good merchant, you're trying to figure out new ways to open new business and make more and more money. So, of course, the merchant heard about this stone face, and he heard about what would happen if you actually matched the stone face. So he returned to the valley, and everyone admired his wealth, and some claimed his face resembled that of the mountain. That here just replaces the face of the mountain. However, Ernest saw that the kindness of the stone face wasn't there. In other words, yeah, the guy kind of looked like the stone face, or maybe he really looked like the stone face, but he did not have that sort of aspect of kindness. Remember, the stone face not only looks like a man with a broad forehead and wide lips, but he also had the look of kindness, and this merchant just didn't have that feeling to him. The kindness just wasn't there in his personality.
Yes, and that kindness was not found in his expression. So if we believe that a person's face and expression is a reflection of their personality or their character, then perhaps Ernest thought that this merchant wasn't kind, that he was just interested in money, but he didn't have that kind quality that the great stone face had.
So it looks like the merchant struck out, and now we're going to move on and find out if the soldier is going to try his luck, and we'll find out if he is successful or not. So let's listen to the next part of our lesson right now.
The next to return was a soldier who earned his fame on the battlefield. His arrival excited many people, and they exclaimed how similar his face was to the mountain. But Ernest didn't see its signature wisdom in the man's smile. A politician followed, and while some were sure he was the one, his gloomy eyes did not match the warm ones of the stone face.
接着第二部分，我们看到名词 fame， 它的意思是声誉或是名望。举例来说 ，The singer never desired fame, she just wanted to make great music. 那名歌手从不渴望名气，他只想做好音乐。又或者说 The author achieved international fame from the success of her hit novel. 那位作者因其畅销小说的成功而获得国际声望。另外补充这个字的形容词 famous, F-A-M-O-U-S, famous, 指的是有名的或是著名的。像是 This restaurant is famous for its steak. 这间餐厅以牛排著称。或是 We visited many famous places in London. 我们在伦敦造访许多著名景点。再来我们看到单字 exclaim， 它是动词，意思是突然呼喊或是惊叫。例如 Megan exclaimed that she had won the lottery. Megan 大呼她中了乐透。或是 Peter exclaimed that he had seen a bear down by the lake. Peter 惊呼说他在湖边看到了一只熊。接下来我们看到单字 signature， 它是形容词，意思是为点点点所特有的或是招牌的。例如 Beef Wellington is Gordon Ramsay's signature dish. 威灵顿牛排是 Gordon Ramsay 的招牌菜。或是 The toucan can be identified by its signature big, brightly colored beak. 可以用其招牌性巨大有色彩鲜明的鸟嘴来辨别巨嘴鸟。再来我们看到形容词 gloomy， 它指的是阴郁的、忧伤的或是昏暗的。例如 Raymond lives in a gloomy apartment with one small window. Raymond 所住的阴暗公寓仅有一小扇窗户。或者我们可以说 England's gloomy weather depressed Wendy. 英国阴沉的天气让温迪感到沮丧。
So the next person to return to the valley to try their luck was a soldier. This soldier earned his fame on the battlefield. So fame is a noun and refers to the state of being famous. You can say that an actor rose to fame after he starred in a particular movie. So fame is just the state of being famous, and this soldier earned his fame or became famous on the battlefield. Battlefield refers to the place where battle or war or fighting is done, usually between enemy soldiers of different countries or places. So this soldier was evidently very brave because he became famous on the battlefield.
Right, he was an excellent soldier. He probably won the Medal of Honor, and he saved many of his comrades, and he took them out and took them to safety for treatment at the local hospital. So yes, indeed, he was famous for being a good soldier on the battlefield. A battlefield, of course, is where a battle takes place in a war. Like in Gettysburg in the U.S., that's a famous battlefield where a battle of the Civil War took place way back, I think it was in 1863. Now, his arrival excited many people, and they exclaimed how similar his face was to the mountain, but Ernest didn't see its signature wisdom in the man's smile. So here, if you exclaim something, that means you state something as fact, and usually it has the emphasis on saying it really loudly. Hey, he looks just like that mountain. He's your guy.
Right, but Ernest didn't see its signature wisdom on the man's face. So we must remember that the great stone face also had a look of wisdom about him. When you have an appearance of wisdom or when you have wisdom, it means that you are wise. So when you're wise, you're not just smart, but you're smart about life in a philosophical way. You know what's right or wrong or right and wrong. And this soldier, despite his bravery, just didn't seem to possess that wisdom in his smile that the great stone face Ernest possessed.
Yes, indeed, he was a great soldier, but I guess he lacked wisdom. And here we've got the word signature. Signature can refer to when you actually sign your name. I need your signature on this document. You need to sign the document. I need your signature on this document. But here in this particular case, it just means the wisdom that is characteristic of the stone face. If something's your signature something, it is a special characteristic that you have that nobody else has. It's your unique trait or your special characteristic.
That's true. And a restaurant could have a signature dish, which is a dish that the restaurant is famous for or that it's very good at preparing and cooking. So after the soldier, a politician came. This politician who followed, and while some were sure he was the one, that he was going to be the next American hero, his gloomy eyes did not match the warm ones of the stone face. So when you have gloomy eyes, it means your eyes have a sad expression. Gloomy means sad.
Exactly. So we have three guys who struck out here. Remember, the first one was the merchant, but he didn't have the look of kindness that the statue had. And then a soldier came, and yes, he's a great soldier, but he didn't have that signature wisdom of the stone face. And then the politician came, and he had these gloomy eyes, and they did not match the warm eyes of the stone face. So again, these three guys, the merchant, the soldier, and the politician, all struck out. So, gee, who's going to win the big prize to become the great American hero by resembling the stone face in many, many ways? So we'll find out in the final paragraph. Let's listen.
As the years went by, Ernest's devotion to honoring the mountain's friendly face had made Ernest himself well known as an inspiring preacher. One evening, he happened to be delivering an outdoor sermon within sight of the stone face, and as the sun sank behind the mountain, gasps were heard from the gathered crowd. As they looked from Ernest's face to the great stone face, none could deny they were seeing mirror images. The hero from the legend stood before them at last.
最后第三部分，我们看到单字 devotion， 它是名词，意思是奉献、忠诚或是挚爱。例如 Hard work and devotion are required if you want to be a member of the basketball team. 如果你想成为篮球队的一员，努力和奉献是必要的。或者我们可以说 I've never met anyone with such a strong devotion to their family before. 在此之前，我从未见过任何人对他们的家庭有如此强烈的奉献精神。另外，补充这个字的动词 devote, D-E-V-O-T-E, devote, 它的意思是致力于或是奉献。我们可以说 I devoted a lot of energy to decorating this apartment. 我投入大量精力装潢这间公寓。也可以说 All of my free time is devoted to taking care of my kids. 我所有的空闲时间都奉献给照顾我的孩子们。
So as the years went by, Ernest's devotion to honoring the mountain's friendly face had made Ernest himself well known as an inspiring preacher. So many years have passed, and Ernest's devotion to honoring the mountain made him well known. When you have devotion towards something, it means that you are loyal to that thing, or you have very strong feelings that are almost religious. Also, it involves a process of spending a lot of time and energy on that thing or on that activity. For instance, a person could have a particular devotion to tennis if they love to play tennis very much. In this case, Ernest had devotion to honoring the mountain's friendly face, which means that he was very loyal and had very strong feelings to the mountain's friendly face.
Indeed, so he had this devotion to honoring the mountain's friendly face, or he was devoted to honoring the mountain's friendly face. And because of that devotion, he became well known as an inspiring preacher, or he was famous because he was an inspiring preacher. Now, a preacher is usually someone who is religious, especially in the Christian religion, where they try to get people to believe in the same things that they do. So if you're a preacher, of course, you're trying to spread the word of the gospel. You're trying to get other people to follow your own church, to follow in the steps of Jesus or whatever. And of course, he knew all about the wisdom and the kindness and the appearance of the stone face.
Well, so far, it doesn't say anything about him being a preacher, a religious person. However, slowly, he does become more religious. Now, one evening, he happened to be delivering an outdoor sermon within sight of the stone face, and as the sun sank behind the mountain, gasps were heard from the gathered crowd. So one evening, he was delivering an outdoor sermon. That means he was outside, he was outdoors, it was evening, and he was delivering or giving a sermon. A sermon is a speech that's usually made by a priest or a preacher or some kind of religious leader, and it's usually done as part of a religious ceremony. I could say, for instance, that many people, when they heard the preacher's sermon, were moved to do good things and to be generous to other people.
Exactly. When I was a kid, of course, I used to go to church with my grandmother. And, of course, during the service, which lasted about an hour, the pastor of the church would give a sermon to the congregation, or he would give a sermon to all the people who were attending that church service. So, yes, indeed, Ernest is now a preacher, and he's giving a sermon outdoors, but this sermon is being given within sight of the stone face. So, in other words, people could see him giving the sermon, and they could also see the stone face at the same time. So within sight of something means it's close enough to you so you can actually see it.
Yes, and as the sun sank behind the mountain, so the sun was going down, gasps were heard from the gathered crowd. So a crowd gathered to listen to the sermon that Ernest was giving, and when the sun went down, they gasped, or gasps were heard. A gasp is a sound that you make when you are surprised. It's made when you suddenly breathe in air. You go, that's a gasp. And suddenly the people in the crowd gasped because they realized something.
Wow, look at that! And as they looked from Ernest's face to the great stone face, none could deny they were seeing mirror images. A mirror image, of course, is an image of something that looks exactly like something else. Like when you look in the mirror, of course, the image in the mirror is exactly the same as you, except it's reversed from left to right. But in any case, it's still pretty much an exact match. It's a mirror image.
Yes, so as the last line goes, the hero from the legend stood before them at last. So the idea here is that even though Ernest had spent much of his life looking for the person, judging people to see if they resembled the great stone face, in the end, he was the one that resembled the great stone face the most, or his face resembled the face of the rock formation, and therefore he will be considered the next great American hero.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things over to Hanny, our beloved Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第二部分写到， 下一位是从战场上载誉归来的军人，他的到来让许多人振奋不已，他们惊呼他的脸竟然跟这座山如此的相似。好，文中是用 exclaim 来表达惊呼，我们来学它的字首字根。首先同学们应该知道 claim 这个字呢，可以当动词或名词去表达宣称、声称的意思。那这个字当字根则有大叫、呼叫的意思。当我们看到 claim 或者是拼作 CLAM 这一类字根呢，它就带有喊叫、大叫的语义。好，那在我们这个单字 exclaim 当中呢，它的字首 EX 表示由内向外，那么 claim 表示大叫，合在一起exclaim 就是表达激动的大声呼喊。这个字可以表达可能因为兴奋啊，或是痛苦等等而突然喊叫的意思。好，那顺便补充几个有相同字根的单字。第一个是 proclaim P-R-O-C-L-A-I-M 它的字首 P-R-O 表示向前在前，字根 claim 表示呼叫。那站在众人前面大声呼喊、大声宣布事情，这样应该很容易联想到 proclaim 它有宣布啊、声明、宣告、主张的意思。第二个补充的是 acclaim A-C-C-L-A-I-M 它的字首 A-C 是来自 A-D 那这个 A-D 就是因为碰到 C 开头的字根才会写成 A-C 它的字首就是表达朝向。那么字根 claim 是呼叫，当我们朝向某个人呐喊，应该很容易联想到是为某人欢呼的画面，那么 acclaim 它就有欢呼、喝彩或是称赞的意思哦。好，第三个补充的是 reclaim 它的字首R-E 表示往回，字根 claim 表示叫喊。那当有人输掉比赛的时候呢，搞不好会大声的落下狠话，说我下一次一定要赢回来。我们用这样的画面去联想到 reclaim 它有夺回、取回、拿回的意思，尤其是指说拿回你先前失去或是被拿走的东西。好，那么课文第三部分语句提到说，某天晚上 Ernest 他刚好在看得见人面巨石的地方进行一场户外步道，文中是用 he happened to 来表达他刚好怎么样怎么样。 happen 在这里表示碰巧，当我们用 happen to 加原形动词，就表示刚好怎么样、正好怎么样、恰巧怎么样。前方还可以加入 just so 来做强调用。举例来说， Her manager just so happens to be my neighbor 她的经理正好是我邻居耶。好，那我们也补充两个相关的句型，你可以用 it happens加上 that 子句，或是 it just so happens 加上 that 子句，或者是呢，你还可以用 as it happens 逗号主词加动词，这时候那个 it 是虚主词，用来代替 that 子句，也就是指恰巧发生的事情。举例来说， It just so happens that I know where to find a good Korean restaurant 也可以说As it happens, I know where to find a good Korean restaurant. 我刚好知道有一家很棒的韩式料理餐厅哦。好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Merchant. The wool merchant visited many sheep farmers in search of more wool. Fame. Lady Gaga's fame now comes from acting as well as singing. Exclaim.No way! Exclaimed Paula when she was told the surprising news. Signature. The story included many examples of the author's signature sense of humor. Gloomy. The cold, rainy weather made Michael feel rather gloomy. Devotion. The soccer player showed her devotion to winning through extra practice on the weekend. Gasp. Linda gave a surprised gasp in response to the movie's unexpected ending.
Discussion starter starts now.
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, how do you think Hawthorne's story defines the word hero?
Well, I think the story defines hero as a person who is kind and wise. Definitely not somebody who is only wealthy or famous or powerful, because those people did not come out as the winners of being the person who resembled the great stone face.
Well, that's a very reasonable interpretation, but in the story, to me, the definition of hero is someone who stays in their hometown their whole life. We have the soldier and the merchant and the politician who came from outside the valley, and none of them fit the qualifications for the stone face, but only Ernest, who had lived there all his life, was the American hero, and I think he's probably going to remain there for the rest of his life.
Well, everyone, today's article has come to an end, and I sure hope you enjoy reading along with us. I am Helen.
I am Roger.
See you next time.